Welcome to GIS 311, Maps and GIS, Day 7. The QR code you see on your screen is the QR code for the survey when you start collecting your data for Lab 5. You'll learn more about that, or you may have already learned about it as you read Lab 5, Part 1 directions. I highly suggest you install Survey 123 onto your Android or Apple phone. Tentative plan. Class will start at the normal time, and there's one question and concern from last week that I'll go over in spring. We'll probably cover it in the previous week in the other courses, but for spring we'll talk about an issue that came up last week, and those of you that may have missed it, you'll learn as well. Spring conferences, summer conferences, don't forget to register for the WGIS GIS conference. That's going to be held at UW Tacoma campus. Please remember to use the compilation document. It will be listed on every module from here on out, and at the end of the course I will provide a full compilation document for the entire GIS 311 course. At the end of the GIS certificate, participants will receive a compilation document for all 3 courses, and that'll serve as a great reference manual, somewhere you can control F and find certain key terms that you need to utilize in a job or an internship or other courses that you may take here or in other programs. We should have one map of the day today. Sometimes there's a few more, so we'll just change that to maps of the day. I'll have a short lecture and demo in class. This video itself will serve as the weekly regular lecture. Not much will be repeated in the class demo or the class, because that's for class demos and questions along with data collection. At about 5 o'clock or 30 minutes into the class, depending on if you're spring or summer or fall, autumn, you will collect data using Survey 123. Again, the directions are listed in Lab 5, Part 1. Around 6 o'clock or an hour after starting collection of the data, all students will return to class and work on Lab 5, Part 2. This is a very interesting lab. There's plenty of new skills this week or today that you're learning. You'll be collecting data via Survey 123. You're going to be downloading the project orthophotos into a new file geodatabase, and that will be stored in your raw data. You won't be creating this geodatabase in your project because we don't want it uploaded at the end of the lab. The data is too big. You're going to create a geocoding address locator. You're going to rematch addresses this week. Utilize some survey data that you collect. You're going to create a new empty feature class and then digitize new footprints of UW Tacoma or Tacoma buildings based on some of the survey data that you collect. And then at the end of the lab, you'll share some data via a layer package and ArcGIS Online. The bonus this week is a story map, so you have an opportunity to learn some new technology. This may or may not be a refresher, but in Lab 4, we came across an instance where we needed to use some advanced symbology. So this is a little side note. It was suggested by Preston that we utilize advanced symbology options when we're symbolizing, and from there We can change the number to represent a percentage. We can change the number of decimals, and it'll help us create a nicely formatted legend. This is the Lab 5 content that you'll be managing the data. You're going to project your rasters into a separate geodatabase, as already mentioned, so that it isn't uploaded with your project folder. Notice that this is here in the raw data, and there's a Lab 5 orthos geodatabase, and that's where you're going to place those ortho photos. Thus, in the databases, you'll have two. One will be the default geodatabase, and the other will be the orthos. Only one will be in the project, as noted here. The other will be in your raw data L5, which is enlarged and expanded and made a little bit larger so it's easier to see over on the left side of the slide. You're going to utilize Survey123 on your personal device, phone or tablet, to collect vector point data. And then you're going to manage this data within the lab directory and the project. Be sure to utilize the prescribed environments, and I will give an example of this live in class as one of the demos. Another task you're going to create or complete is to export a table to a geodatabase, and that usually is easiest if you put the table within the map and then right click on it within the contents. Part of this lab, you will do what's called geocoding or geocode a TXT, which is just text, it's a file of bars within Tacoma. So it's a text file of bars. You're going to create the geolocator. I will give an example of that in class, and then geocode. Notice that within my locators now, there's a Pierce locator. That is the one that you will use. We will not use the ArcGIS World Geocoding Service, nor the XY provider. You will geocode a number of addresses. Some will match and some will not. And that's a good thing because we only want legitimate bars to be matched. And in this case, we're just doing a sample of bars. Not that bars are the go-to that we should be focusing on, but it's just a list of bars that have addresses, and we're going to locate them within the city limits of Tacoma. How you create a locator is using the Create Locator tool, which is visible on the right side of the screen. And then once that's created, you're going to right-click on Tech Bars Table within your contents and geocode the table. You could think of geocode as the verb. That is what the tool will do. It'll geocode the addresses, and that is give a point to the location based on the address rather than the XY coordinates, because our data is just addresses. There is no XY coordinate within this TXT file. After the addresses are geocoded, there are some that could possibly be rematched with some additional information. Sometimes what happens is there are typos in data as it's entered, and you'd have to go in and fix it. And in this case, you're going to utilize whatever means you can come up with to find the correct data and then make sure that we do have the correct number of bars geocoded. Again, you're only going to geocode and create a point for bars that legitimately should be in our Tacoma feature of bars based on their business and their location. It needs to be in Tacoma. It needs to be a bar. We want good data within our new data. And the examples are shown on the screen. Rematch addresses. This is the process of rematching the addresses. If one is perhaps has the wrong zip code, and then you put in or enter the correct zip code, it may be properly geocoded, and in that case rematched using the rematch addresses process. From there, you're going to, in Lab 5, add new fields to an empty point feature class. And using that process, you will create a new feature class. The window on the right is the Create Feature Class tool, and that will be, the directions for that will be provided in class and in the lab directions. So again, we have a new empty vector point feature class. You're going to add fields, and you're going to add them within the attribute table. In this case, you'll add a new field. It'll be text, 50 characters in length, and then close the attribute table. You're used to looking at your contents, either list by source or list by drawing order. Source is the geodatabase looking icon, and source is the actual source. Drawing order is the this little list right here, and then list by source is the geodatabase icon. We're going to utilize list by editing status, and that will display which feature classes that you can edit and the information about them. For example, here it's very small, but it says editable. These are the 6 layers that are editable within my contents of this Lab 5 content. In the middle, I have the snapping displayed. It'll show different snapping settings. In the bottom right, this is a straight line. This is the select tool that you'll utilize for creating your polygons later in the lab. And this button right here within the contents is, again, the editing status. So this will show you the editing status. That's an important one to try to remember because it helps us decide, it helps us visualize what we need to do. You'll be creating some content, and in this case you'll be digitizing polygons based on some of the points that were located using Survey 123 or the TAC bars table. I've found that the easiest way to do this is to enter the attributes first and then to create the feature. It seems to be more easier and appears to be easier and much more efficient. And these are just again, snapping, the line, and the select tool, just to help you realize what you're about to see when you open up Arc Pro and start the editing process. And in this case, I'm editing or creating features within my user ID Tacoma footprints. And footprints will be the portion of the building that touches the ground. So think of our footprint. It's not us per se, it's the print of our foot. So just as the building may have different attractive features, windows, those type of things, we're merely focusing on the footprint of the building, what the print would look like if we were to map it, which in this case we are. In this visual, I am in the process of creating this footprint for Metro Coffee, I believe, or the Swiss. I can't tell where this point is, what point this corresponds to. But I've started in one corner, I click in another corner, click, click, and then double click at the end to complete the sketch. And this will create that polygon footprint of the building. And this is the Swiss building, and part of that Swiss building, it is, let's see, it must be the Swiss building, not Metro Coffee. Metro Coffee is, I believe, further up the street. Here, completing the sketch of the building. This one's a little different. This one may be the coffee. Yes, this is Metro Coffee. So Metro Coffee was marked either here or here. Maybe two different groups completed this. The GPS on your phones isn't 100% accurate. It can be off by up to 30 meters. So these 2 points could correspond to the exact same thing. You would have to click the info button to determine what they were representing based on the data that was collected. You probably haven't collected the data yet, so these are foreign to you, but once your data is collected, you will have a bunch of points that represent different areas within Tacoma. And again, it's easier to enter the attributes first, add the attributes, double click to finish, and then you'll have your line or your row or your case, as sometimes they're called. Each line is a case within your attribute table of your feature class. Looking towards some Lab 5 deliverables, on the left there's the image of the catalog just for your information. You're going to create a basic 8.5 by 11 PDF. The details will be provided within the instructions. You will share an ArcGIS Pro layer package, which will include symbology and data. So instead of just the layer, or the data, there's going to be symbology and data connected. You can tell here that there are two different buildings being represented. I symbolize them in purple. You're going to share a file to ArcGIS Online, and the name of that file is provided in the directions. You'll upload your user ID lab5project.zip. There will be a write-up quiz. You're going to answer the questions that are provided in the lab. Lab 5 quiz includes questions from Lab 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and X. And then the bonus this week is an ArcGIS Online story map. I highly encourage you to take a look at those. And now to data collection. You'll be using Survey 123. Again, it's going to be on your phone or your tablet. You log in the same way that you would on ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Training. This is the link. You'll need to utilize the slide deck to click on that, or you could just type it out. Another way is to use this QR code, which I believe will be much easier. This will be on the screen in class, so students can locate it. Once you open the survey, yours will have the correct year and date. It'll then say Lab 5 survey. You're going to use the crosshair to mark your position. You will collect data that's either art, a bar, a closed business, coffee, emergency phone, food, graffiti, or a sitting area. And you will mark which point you create each time based on this drop down this map point represents. So you won't have to type in each of these items. I've created a drop down for you. And this year what I've decided to do is provide this survey to you so that you can manipulate it, play with it, use it for your own purposes, or modify it by using save as to get you started with a survey 1, 2, 3 in the back end. I've done all the back end work on this survey. You're only using it as a user. By providing you with the actual file, you'll be able to edit it and use it for other purposes, or at least have it as an example when you use or create your own survey 1, 2, 3 at some other point. At the beginning, when you're looking at your surveys, yours will not look like this. Yours will have your icon, which is considerably much more purple, if I recall. And of course, it'll have the correct quarter and date. So you'll install the application, you'll log in, you'll either search or download the survey. This says summer, but of course it'll be your quarter. So let's just put in quarter, 311 lab 5. And then here's the link if you want, and here's the QR code again. I'm keeping this on all the slides so you can see it more easily. This again is the spring survey. There's the link again. You navigate to and find your desired point, and then using your location on your device, the point will likely show up where you are, and that's this little icon. Use the drop down to categorize the data. Use your keyboard to name the location. So there is a spot where you will have to type what this location is. For example, the Swiss. If you were locating the Swiss, you would stand outside the Swiss or whatever you're locating, create the point, type in the Swiss. Please use proper spelling and capitalization. That'll save you a lot of time that you would normally have to spend error checking. If you type everything properly, it'll be a lot easier to manage your data. If possible, take a picture and then submit using the final button, and then go on to your next point. And of course, yours will correspond to your quarter and your year. Your quarter and year again, and this is just another explanation what you're going to do, and then you go on to your next point. Within your ArcGIS Online, you will see the Lab 5 survey for your quarter and year. You will also see one that states editable. So the name has been changed to editable. So you'll be able to edit that survey for your use. So you have a nice example of one that I don't mind if you borrow, save as I would highly suggest saving as a new name. Don't edit the actual version if possible. You will be able to utilize that survey for as long as you're connected to ArcGIS Online. It's usually easier to find within the folders than it is the actual list, and that I will demo in class. I'm going to make myself a note to demo the contents in class. After all the data has been collected, we'll have a map somewhat like this on the screen, and the data will be available. You folks are contributing to the data all together, So all of the survey data will be part of a large file. Additionally, you will have your own data that you'll be uploading for others that will be yours separately. You'll submit proof of collecting your 25 points in your group of 1, 2, or 3. You can do this on your own, or you will be able to work with a colleague in the class. And then that wraps up the day for Lab 5 and Day 7. Please come to class with questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. There is a lot to cover this week, so we'll get started right away at the starting time for class. I look forward to seeing you in class. One last reminder, dress for the weather because it may be raining. Hopefully we'll luck out with some nice weather, but it might be raining, and also wear some good shoes for walking around campus. And that wraps up today's lecture, or this week's lecture. I'll see you in class.